Hello there, good morning, and welcome once again to That Makes Me Mad. As promised, we have live in studio the leader of the opposition, St. Lucia Labour Party, Philip J. Pierre. And Mr. Pierre, let me say a very special good morning to you, and thank you so much for coming.
Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, and thanks for having me. Good morning to all the listeners of Helen 1000.
Of course, I think your very, very able-bodied secretary here is ensuring that you're on Facebook, so that's very good.
That's good.
That is amazing. That is
very
amazing.
Happy, and I want to thank her for that.
Yes, because all our resources are being pumped into the World Cup football and so on.
Football, yeah, and it's getting very interesting. I think England against Belgium today. That's supposed to be the match of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know why the technology has really grown by leaps and bounds.
And that's a message for us politicians. Everything we see, no matter where we see it, yes, can be used against us.
Yeah, or do.
Yeah, doesn't matter exactly, because everybody is a journalist. Yeah, so we have to be very careful when you have utterances, particularly when we are in the positions where our words matter.
Now, Mr. Pierre, the last time that you were here, we didn't take any calls, so I really want to do that today. So I hope we can get that going as soon as possible.
And we're starting early today, which is good.
Yes. Okay, so let's just hit the road running. Now, Mr. Pierre, the most recent conversation I had with Mr. Guy Joseph is actually on this show on What Makes Me Mad, and Mr. Joseph reiterated his call for a debate between certain members of your party, the St. Lucia Labour Party, and himself over the St. Jude Hospital saga. So, what is your response to that, officially? Have you changed? I know earlier you said that the party is not interested. Have you changed your stance?
But you see, Mr. Joseph has a habit of saying things that sound very nice, basically playing to the gallery. And whilst he's doing that, he spreads a lot of misinformation and divides the country. The place where parliamentarians debate is in the parliament. If Mr. Joseph has an issue, he brings a motion, he's in government, he can either bring a private member's motion or regular motion, come to the Parliament of St. Lucia, where it will be put on the table and all sides will debate. Parliamentarians debate in the parliament. Then there'll be no need for a moderator. The moderator is the speaker. There'll be no need for records. The records are going to be in Hansard. So this thing about the debate is just, as I always make point, smoke and mirrors, just to create an atmosphere of being invincible, of having nothing to hide. What Mr. Joseph does is he hides behind statements. On the St. Jude issue, he read a statement and he knows very well that in the House of Parliament, when ministers make statements, the statements cannot be debated. Why did Mr. Joseph bring a motion to the Parliament to discuss the St. Jude's issue? So that idea about a debate, it sounds good, because what he does, he goes after the unsuspecting minds and a lot of emotion. The last time he said that he was being investigated by the Money Laundering and Terrorism Authority. No one has ever asked him, where is that authority? So you see, I believe that when we're speaking about these matters, we must be serious. We must stop dividing the country. We must stop putting the country in a situation where nobody knows what is true. We must stop muddying the waters, and we must say things right. If Mr. Joseph wants to debate, he gets a motion in the parliament, let the speaker agree to the motion, the parliamentarians debate it, and the speaker rules. We will most likely lose because the ayes will have it. When we had issues with the CIP, we brought a motion in the parliament. This one has been happening. So this debate thing is a whole lot of emotion, a lot of smoke and mirrors, just to sound good. That doesn't make any sense. We will debate when Mr. Joseph brings a motion to the Parliament of St. Lucia. We are asking Mr. Joseph, bring the St. Jude's issue to the Parliament. Bring the handover report. Bring the audit report. Don't go on the radio on radio or on stations that are sympathetic to you and make statements about debate, and sound as if you're so powerful. The fact is, we will speak on these issues, and when it comes to a debate, the place for the debate is the Parliament of St. Lucia. There'll be no need for a moderator because the speaker is there. There'll be no need for notes because the Hansard is there. There'll be no need to say, I didn't say, because the record will be there. That's all we're saying. If Mr. Joseph wants to debate anything, come to the Parliament of St. Lucia. Period.
Okay, at the weekly pre-cabinet media conference, you also brought up this issue, which is, of course, you know, he's been talking about this for quite a while right now. As a matter of fact, I think there was a back and forth between you and him after the session of Parliament and so on over this issue. This thing about $3 million of taxpayers' money being spent on investigation involving himself and a developer. Please, Mr. Leader of the Opposition, can you shed some light on this for us? Give us the history, what had happened, and so on. You know, and why the need to spend so much money on an investigation involving Mr. Joseph?
Again, Andrew, Mr. Joseph is in government. All the information is available. I don't understand why. You see, I think Mr. Joseph has forgotten. He's so taken aback by wanting to attack and make people cry that he forgets that he's in government. You are in government. If the government spent $3 million to investigate anybody, bring the records. If when the money was misspent or misused, have an act against the Minister of Finance, that Minister of Finance, for using the money wrongly. Do something. Don't just talk. You are in government. But you see, when you do not have facts and the truth is not on your side, you say things to muddy the waters. All these things, I mean, $3 million. Mr. Joseph has come to Parliament. Listen to me. Here is the $3 million that was spent, that they say, that I'm saying was spent. We believe that this $3 million was wrongly spent. Okay, you're going to make the point that it was misappropriated. So we bring an action against the government of the Labour Party for spending government's money incorrectly. That's all. All the talk. I don't know why, but you know, that is to muddy the waters. That is to divide the country. That is to make unsuspecting minds believe that something wrong happened. There are procedures and there are processes where you deal with all these issues.
So, can you tell us exactly what happened? Give us the facts. Give us the history.
The facts are that there was a forensic investigation, a forensic inquiry investigation into the affairs as it surrounds Iwanora International Airport. You know, and the Prime Minister himself made the comment that he will appoint a committee to look into what was in the public domain. The Prime Minister himself made a comment. I think we have forgotten that. You see, as I made the point earlier, when politicians speak, they must know whatever they say can be used because it's recorded. The technology has made it possible for that. You can say things. It was not like before when I started in politics that you go and say things in the back of Bapatat or somewhere in Schuzel or in Bexo, and nobody hears you. Now everything you say, no matter what you say it, somebody hears you and somebody records you. I'm being recorded now by thousands of people. You understand? So the point I'm making to you is that there was this forensic investigation, which Prime Minister Anthony made it clear that it happened. Then the process is continuing. What happened is that the Attorney General of St. Lucia asked the State Department, or I want to use a better word, or the State Department, or the Crown, or the people who were involved in these matters in the US, for some information. The US said, yes, there's probable cause, so we're going to send you the information. Or we're going to agree to send you the information. That's where it's at. The information, then we lost the government. So the information has not come, or if it's come, it'll come to this government. So Mr. Joseph has ample time to wait. I don't understand the excitement about it, because it was in the public domain. The documents were in circulation, that there were hundreds of phone calls, and possibly some emails, and we're saying, and what the investigator, the forensic investigator, was asking is for information on these phone calls. When we left government in the United States, it was agreed that there was probable cause that the information should be forthcoming. So the question is, has the information come? Fortunately, the information we're out of government. So the information will come to Mr. Joseph. if it never comes, again, I don't understand what's the problem. I don't know what's the excitement about it. If you've done nothing, if you're completely innocent, you wait let the results of the inquiry that went to the U.S. District Attorney, when he comes with that information, then you will ask, why the excitement? Why all the issues? I really don't understand what's the need for all these things. The information will come. So why the query? And if you believe that $3 million was spent and that money was wrongly spent, then you have the right to bring an action against the government that spent the money. You see, Andre, all these issues, they can be solved, The system has an adequate response to all these issues. As I made a point, it's the same point about the debate. But what we're doing is we're playing to the gallery. This guy plays to the gallery. He divides the country. He says these kind of things with no proof. But he's in government. He can bring a motion. He wants to discuss the West Coast Road, whatever road it is. Bring a motion. There's an audit department. They did an audit on the Badawanch Bridge. An audit was done. That audit was published in the House of Parliament. You understand? But what we do, and this is the thing about this government, they always muddy the waters. They always throw things up in the air just to create suspicion. And that is not good for the country, particularly the young people of the country, because they believe politicians are all the same. All these things, all the accusations, there are procedures and processes by which you can solve them. So if Mr. Joseph believes anything wrong was done to him, if Mr. Joseph believes that people stole money at St. Jude's, go through the processes. Don't muddy the waters. You may remember, the first thing he said was he would give the thing to the Director of Public Prosecution. I don't know if you recall that. When they invaded the homes of people, he said, what's happened to that? But again, where you have no fact, you make noise. But I'll tell you something. The opposition will continue to advocate, will not be silenced, will continue to pray, because our position is we have a responsibility to the people of St. Lucia. The same way we never denied Guy Joseph the responsibility when he was in opposition to say what he said. He said that we were making $6.80 on gasoline. He said so. He had a demonstration for that. We never denied him that right. No one will deny the opposition the right to advocate on issues legally that we believe the people of St. Lucia need to know. So they can call us names, they can make all kinds of accusations, they can say 90% of our people must remain out of work. We will continue to do the job that 37,000 people elected us to do, and the people who did not vote, that is our job, and legally we'll continue to do it.
The Minister for Tourism, Mr. Dominic Fede, was my guest last week on What Makes Me Mad, and he brought up a number of issues as regards the tourism industry. He spoke about numbers and so on. He also spoke about this issue about sandals and monies that were waived and this sort of thing. I think he even said that this was it started under your administration. He spoke about village tourism and so on. Can you weigh in on these issues, please?
Yeah, sure. I want to start first of all to make a very serious issue. The Labour Party would love tourism to flourish. We love to. You must understand, and again our memories are short. When we came to government in 1997, we made the point that the economy was in transition, because we'd come from a situation where we were getting $3 million a week from bananas. And the banana situation, because of matters beyond our control, bananas get into problems. We made the point that tourism, the economy was in transition. We were laughed at. You may recall, it was a standard joke. Oh, the economy is in transition. When that's going to finish? You may recall. Now, that transition was from agriculture to services. So we were the government who had the brunt of that transition to transform that from agricultural base to a services base. So we understand tourism and we support tourism. We were the government that decided that taxi drivers should get incentives and should get organized with TX plates so that they can share in the tourism cake. We were the government that made the point that the benefits of tourism must accrue to as many people as possible. We were the government that began the hostesses program to get people, young people, to meet our visitors on the airports, on the shores of the country, to show them the country. We were the one who opened the lookout point at the Mon. That was me. I was the one who did that when I opened the lookout point in the Mon. We were the ones who opened the 2 lookout points in Dennery. We were the ones. So we understand the matter of tourism. We believe that tourism must benefit the majority of people in the country. We were the ones who started the most tourism investment in the country. And I made a mistake. I don't even remember. I made a mistake in the parliament the other day when I said the years. It was between the years 2001, 2006. We were the ones. That was the most. I was the minister. In fact, the now prime minister, his hotel was opened. His father's hotel was opened during that time. So we understand tourism. So we have nothing against tourism. We have nothing against people getting jobs from the tourism industry. But we maintain that the benefits of tourism must accrue to as many people as possible. And you cannot have a tourism industry where the numbers are increasing and the vendors are complaining. If you can have a number where you boast about large numbers and all the ancillary services are complaining. And if you speak, in fact, as we speak, the dive shop at Rodney Bay, opposite the Harbour Club Hotel, has given notice that they're going to be closed for a few weeks because, to use the exact words, because business is slow. But you're talking about large numbers, and now you have the point that people are saying business is slow. But that having been said, fact is, I want to make the point that we support tourism. Number one. Number two, the Sanders issue. Sanders is a large investor. In fact, we passed a bill called the Tourism Incentives Act. I think we had an amendment to the Tourism Incentive Act, which gave added incentives to Sanders and any hotel, because we were trying, because investment was weak, we were trying to boost investment. So we gave added incentives to these hotels, including Sanders. So to make the point that this government has fought Sanders, that is not true. Again, that never happened. And it will not happen. One Sanders is an investor that obeys the law. One Sanders is an investor that wants to partner with the government and people of St. Lucia. One Sanders is an investor that wants to have, that is prepared to give workers a fair wage. One Sanders is prepared to obey the environmental laws of the country. We'll partner with Sanders. We have nothing against Sanders. Now the issue of the withholding tax. I defy the Minister of Tourism to show any letter that says we agreed to waive it. I defy him. I'm putting it to public. I want him to show any letter, except if it's forged, that says that any member of the government that I was part of, that I was the Deputy Prime Minister for, or the Prime Minister was, Dr. Kenny Anthony, has written any letter to anybody that says we promise to waive $24 million of duties. That never happened. What we said, Sanders is a large investor. What we say, if Sanders has an issue, we must talk to them. How can Sanders employs nearly 1,000 people? What government will want to not to understand that? One Sanders is prepared to be a good corporate partner in our development. So we said we are prepared to look at the issue to lead to a settlement. We never said we'd waive. We never said so. But again, and it's very sad that the minister should bring Butch Stewart's name in it, should bring Richard Peterkins. These people are not politicians. Why is he doing that? There's no need for that. You see, the government doesn't want to take responsibility for its actions. And that's the basic problem with the government. They are afraid to take responsibility for their actions. The government decided to waive the $24 million worth of withholding tax for Sanders.
By the way, what is your take on it? Do you think it was a wise move?
What I'm saying to you is that in times when revenue is an issue, you have to be very careful. And that's all I'm going to say now, because at the time when we left government, the issue was on the table. It's a fact, the issue was on the table. But to say we agreed is not true. But the point I'm making, Andrew, is that this government always finds someone to blame. If the National Trust, they blame it. The Medical and Dental Association, they blame it. Though as for the Labour Party, we added. I mean, anything happens when you're in government, anything happens is the Labour Party. In opposition, it happens to the Labour Party. The Labour Party, you believe that the government is in opposition. They don't understand that they are in, but the government is so, their desire to be revengeful and to make people cry and to make 90% of people suffer because they support the Labour Party. That desire is so deep from within that they cannot hide it. So they miss the boat all the time. And that's what's happening. It's 2 years, nothing has happened.
You know, Mr.
And nothing will happen.
You've been saying so repeatedly that the current administration used words like vengeful, vindictive, things like. Why do you keep referring to them in those terms?
Because the evidence is clear. The evidence is clear. You heard Mr. Ubaldas Raymond say that the Labour Party will begin to feel the wrath of the UWP. What I'm saying, Andrew, I don't. It's not speculation. You know, these things are facts. They are on the record. He made the point that we'll feel the wrath of the. We'll begin to feel the wrath of the UWP. You don't know what that means. The wrath of the government. He made that point. The Prime Minister said we have no right. We lost our right to speak on June the 6th. Prime Minister, so the Prime Minister said he lets barking dogs back. The Prime Minister says that I was an economic, not the Prime Minister, the UWP's page said I was an economic terrorist because I spoke about the CIP. Mr. Guy Joseph said in Parliament, you crying, you just start to cry. That you're crying for, you just start to cry. The other minister said that he made a mistake. It wasn't 70% of the people who lost their jobs. Here you have young mothers, people, and Andrew, when you go across the country, you hear these stories. I just got a message on my BBM now. I still have BBM. It may be surprising. It may shock you to know.
I'm sure.
BBM, yes, still BBM. That's how Yasi talks to him, BBM. That says that here's a young girl, a young lady who was a principal's assistant. She lost her job. She hasn't worked from that time. You understand? Even you have people who tell you that they had things at courts based on their nice projects. But listen to what's the government excuse. Oh, they had a contract and the contract was not renewed. That's it. And here's the excuse that 90% of them were people who support the Labour Party. Now, what government says so? And the Prime Minister doesn't have the soul to say to his minister, do not say that. The minister repeats it. So when I made the point of vindictiveness, I'm not saying things, I'm not just saying things. So I'll tell you what. In people who cut grass on the streets, in my constituency, not one of them was rehired. Not one. Not one of the people who did the bushing was rehired. Not one. There was a situation where a grade 5 guy in the Ministry of Transport, his contract was signed. And I defy them to say that that's not true. His contract was renewed on April the 18th, 2018 for 2 years. He's a grade 5. Now, that process was simple. The head of department agreed that the guy, all his appraisals were good. So the head of department recommended to the Parliament Secretary that this grade 5, and I'm saying grade 5 over time, if you just understand the level at which this thing has reached. The Parliament Secretary signed the contract. And I defy anybody to say that's not true. Signed the contract and renewed the guy's contract from 2018 to 2020. Good? The guy went back to work. When it was known that this guy, who was perceived, he came under our government. So it's perceived that he was labor. That guy's contract was terminated on the clause, and the guy was so simple. When they gave him the contract, he didn't even read it. I mean, he didn't read the clauses. He didn't allow a lawyer to look at it for him. It said that you could be terminated with 1 month notice. It didn't have the words, any words that said for what reason. The guy was terminated on that clause. A grade 5. After all his appraisals, after all his appraisals were perfect. And you don't know why he was terminated? He said because he lived in Anchipo. Now, Andre, now this is things that I'm not saying that because I want to attack the government, you know. I think I probably have the documents in my briefcase. I can make it a document. I can make a document in the house when the time comes. So you see, when we say about vindictiveness, and look at Ernest Hilaire, look at the situation with his car. You understand? I'm not saying that what we say is not because I want to say it, you know. These things are things that are verifiable. This vindictiveness and this desire to make us cry. But I'll tell you something. There's opposition in North Korea. There's opposition in China. You understand? The Labour Party will not be quieted. We will not break the law. But we are going to speak all the time on what we think is wrong, and no amount of victimization, no amount of vindictiveness, no amount of name calling, no amount of flashing mirrors will ever stop us from doing what's right.
Now that you mentioned the Prime Minister's recent statement, a platform statement about let the jackasses bray, you just mentioned that a while ago. Do you think that those statements were directed at the opposition?
Solely the opposition, and some people saying the Calypsonians. But again, it's the Prime Minister's history. You must understand. Dr. Kenny Anthony made a statement. He said, Guy Joseph can be called what's his name? Alan Chasney's poodle. That wasn't original, because Churchill had already related to somebody being a poodle. That wasn't original. The United Workers' Party made a hue and cry. Reporters wrote, Kenny's insultive and this and that. It was just an aside, and I said that's not original. But here's the Prime Minister's history. Let barking dogs, not every dog that barks you will listen to. Listen to that. That's a history. Again, it's on the record. I'm not saying things that are out of place. Let barking dogs bark. Then he says, jackasses. He said, I don't listen. I let the jackasses breathe. He didn't make a statement and said, man, you know, when I do talk, I think jackasses talking and then move on. He said, I do not listen. I let the jackasses breathe. Now, what's the definition of a jackass? A jackass, there are two meanings of a jackass. One is a donkey, a male donkey, and two, a fool. So it's clear. So anybody tries to make an excuse for that, is the best thing for the government and the surrogates of the government is forget that. But when you make a point that it's a figure of speech, it's a history. The Prime Minister called me a terrorist. He called us terrorists for speaking about St. Jude's. You understand? When Dr. Kenny Anthony made a similar statement, he didn't even say it. He said it is media terrorism. He didn't say anybody was a terrorist, you know. He never said so. It was a big, this was, now, if it was wrong then, it's wrong now. And further, let us suppose we did what is not right. Why must the government copy what's not right? What's the point? Why are you copying what's not right? So, the people of St. Lucia voted for change. They didn't vote for you to do what we did and say we did it too. Doesn't make sense, Andre. Doesn't make sense. So the Prime Minister has got very arrogant in his 2 years in office. And the arrogance is clear. And for a Prime Minister to get so arrogant after 2 years is very worrisome as to what will happen for the next 2 years. You understand?
So why are you saying that he's arrogant?
Because you write a Prime Minister, he doesn't respond. The normal things. I'll tell you something. The Prime Minister wrote me a letter about two commissions, the Integrity Commission and the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission, he wrote me through his cabinet secretary. I said to him that that's not normally the right procedure. You're supposed to write directly to the leader of the opposition. And it's not Philip J. Pierre, you know. You must make it's the office of leader of the opposition. The office of leader of the opposition is a constitutional post in the Constitution of St. Lucia. You can never look in the Constitution of St. Lucia and see any minister for anything. You can never find any minister of infrastructure, there is nothing there. What's there is a leader of the opposition. The Constitution speaks to ministers and ministries. But that's just an aside. So the point I want to make to you is the Prime Minister is not dealing with Philip J. Pierre. He's in the Office of Leader of the Opposition. So the first letter on the Public Service Commission, in fact, I wrote him one letter and he refused to respond. It doesn't matter. The letter on the Public Service Commission, he wrote me for the Cabinet Secretary. I said to him, I acknowledge the letter. I said to him, the normal process is you write the minister, the leader of the opposition directly. He didn't, as usual, he didn't respond. The second letter on the Integrity Commission, he did the right thing, he wrote me directly. I acknowledged the letter and I said to him I had issues with certain members of the Integrity Commission. He never even responded, he just appointed them. He never even called to say, what issues you have, can we discuss them? Never. He just did his thing. What he said is that he met the constitutional requirements that he consulted. He didn't consult me, he informed me. Consultation means discussion. It's just like the Governor General. And I heard one of the Prime Minister's officers saying, it's the government's right. The government's right is given to them by the people. You understand? The Prime Minister has never called me and said to me, I'm considering appointing X person as Governor General. So I have reason to talk about his arrogance. I felt his arrogance. You understand? I felt the arrogance of his ministers. When a minister can tell you that 90% of the people were their party supporters, so they have a right not to be able to feed their families, that's arrogance, that's contempt at its highest. So you see, what I'm saying to you, Andre, I can back it with evidence.
So what is your take on this latest incident involving the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association?
Again, arrogance. You see, Andre, the late Tom Adams said something. Tom Adams. He said doctors have the power that our parents do not have when we were born, after we were born. They have life. Doctors have your life in your hands. And no matter how you can afford to go into a helicopter and go to Martinique or Miami or New York or anywhere in the world, the initial stages of your collapse, you have to be handled by local doctors and nurses. That gives them no right to be arrogant. I don't think they should be. But the point is, when the doctors of the country say to the Prime Minister that is our business, we are in the health business. Doctors take an oath to see about the health of people. And again the minister attacks them and says they give them wrong medicine. I mean, if a doctor does that, you have to report him. You are in government. Do what you have to do. There are processes that deal with these things. And go to the court. Lodge a case. Do something. Don't just say it. So if there are doctors that misbehave, the government has the power. There's a medical, there's not a medical, there's the Medical and Dental Association. But there's also an act that dictates how doctors ought to behave. So if doctors are behaving in a manner that is incorrect, use the act. Bring them to justice. But here you have the association after, and you must note that the association had sent to the Prime Minister a document detailing their position on the health crisis in St. Lucia. Understand that, eh? So here is the association reaching out to the government and say, listen to me, here are our proposals to improve the crisis that exists, that to our minds, as professionals, as doctors, the crisis that exists in the country, these are our proposals that we want to, that's what we are saying should happen. Can we discuss it? Is it possible, Andre, for the Prime Minister to meet 200 doctors in his office? Is that logical in your mind? Now, since when 200 doctors will have a discussion with the Prime Minister? How can the Prime Minister determine who a duly elected association will bring to discuss with him? So the idea that the Prime Minister wanted to speak to 200 doctors. Now, okay, let's suppose every doctor wanted to come to the meeting. What will happen to the health situation in the country? What will happen to the services at the emergency wards? So the system must stop. There must be no operations. There must be no emergency care because the Prime Minister wants to speak to 200 doctors. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, face it. Does that make? I don't want you to answer. I want you to listen. Does that make sense that the Prime Minister would meet 200 doctors in his office? So it doesn't make sense. But again, it's the arrogance of the government. The arrogance of the Prime Minister. That I can do whatever I want because I won elections. You have no right. You lost your right on June the 6th. And it comes back to the same old thing. Shut up and listen to your masters. And I'm sure you can recall. It's arrogance. So what do doctors do? But instead you attack them. So you send your surrogates to attack the doctors. Not to listen to what they have to say. Where is the proof? Tell me the proof that any member of the Medical and Dental Association is involved in the politics of the Labour Party in terms of being actively involved in the politics of the Labour Party. Where's the proof? And so, but you just say that. And you go on platforms and you attack them. They went to Miko and they attacked them. You understand? Then they go on Carrier FM and they attack them and they attack them. Why are you doing that? These are professional people. No, the Medical and Dental Association has never said to anybody, vote Labour or vote UWP. What they are saying is in our eyes, not in the eyes of people who write things, or people who are elected into government, People who are trained. They are the doctors. They are the ones that we go to. If I leave here and I fall sick, now you will get the ambulance. You take me to one of these people, either Tapio or Victoria Hospital. Yes, they are the people. They're not. They are the people. They're not writing from what they think. They are the professionals. If these people have, in that environment, have the guts to tell you that things are not working right, the best thing you do is to talk to them. And I'll tell you something. The government that I will lead will never do that kind of thing. We believe in inclusion. We're going to speak to everybody. We're going to, in fact, very early, and from opposition, we are seeking an audience with all the important stakeholders in the country. The doctors, the nurses, the unions, the small business people, the police. In fact, again, the arrogance of the government. When the Police Welfare Association came to seek an audience with the leader of the opposition, they were chastised by the minister. And that's the same people who tell you crime is for all of us. The same people who tell you crime. But they were chastised. Again, the arrogance. You see, the government doesn't understand that they are custodians of power for a short time. And what they will say, especially the one from Soufrière, now you know that. Of course I know that now. I knew that all the time because I was there. I have the experience of being on both sides of the fence. That's the difference between me and them. I understand opposition and I understand government. I've lived through both of them. So I know the folly of government and what government should do and what they should not do. And I can assure you, when we get back into government, a lot of things that we did that we should not have done, they are going to be corrected. So it's going to be a government of inclusion, a government of discussion, a government of compromise, a government of dialogue, a government that will not divide people, and a government that will try to bring out the best from the people of St. Lucia, particularly the young people of the country.
Mr. Pierre, we really want to take some calls. Our number is 451-7260, but just before we open the line, I just need to ask you, should you lead the next government after the elections, right, a call, would you reinstate the NICE program? I know this is dear to your heart.
The first day, we're going to create some level of employment, honestly, for the people of St. Lucia, because I saw the pain people lost their jobs. You see, Angela, you must see a single mother, you must see, I'll tell you something, I represent people. I represent them for 20 years in one. And when you hear them say what Pierre do for Marchand, this foolishness, which one day I will deal with at some point. Do you understand? What I do for people is I connect with them. I connect with them. I live near them. My connection is with the people. I am poised to understand how they feel because they tell me how they feel. I've seen mothers cry because they lost their job on the nights. I've seen tears come to their eyes. I've seen mothers with their babies and say to me, Mr. Pierre, I have no milk for the baby because I lost my nice job. I've seen it happen. I've seen fathers being brought to the courts because they can't support because they lost their nice contract. So I understand that. So I will never, and I can empathize with that kind of feeling because I've seen it. I didn't just arrive. You know. I have the experience and the knowledge of dealing with real people, not people I meet in a campaign or people I meet on Facebook. I'm talking about real people that I deal with. So I understand the pain and sufferings of the nice workers. Okay. I understand that.
All right. So after we take some calls, hopefully we can end with you weighing in on this issue of village tourism and also the jazz festival, which the current tourism minister said that under your administration you spent a lot more money. All right. So our number is 451-7260. Let's go to the phone lines immediately. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. I have a question for the leader of the opposition. You know, the Alan Sharpney government is in power now, and I just want to know, you know, what gives him, I want to ask him, and I will hang up the phone, what gives him the right to dictate to the Prime Minister on how to go about the airport? Because I heard him saying about they should never go the way they want to go with the airport, they should never go this way with the airport, and I'm saying they were in power for 5 years, they didn't fix the airport, they didn't fix the hospital, they didn't get the hospital ready. So I'm trying to understand why he feels he has the right to tell him how to go about getting us the international airport and what way he should go about it. Because he's the Prime Minister, and I think he should have the right to go about it the way he wants to go about it and not be dictated to by the leader of the opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Caller.
Caller, you don't understand the basics of democracy. I'm not dictating anything to the Prime Minister. I can't. But that I have an opinion. Now, let's get to the point of the airport. And again, these are the things that we say without any proof. If you look at the manifesto of our party in the 2011 general elections, we said that we believe that the Honora Airport ought to be remodeled and the terminal buildings rebuilt. We said so. We also said that we want to do it with the minimum debt and the most transparent process, Caller. The most transparent process. Because we had known the history of airports. We know it happened in Trinidad. So we said we're looking for a transparent process. So here's the process. And I've said it several times before, and I'm not dictating. I'm being factual. You understand? So these emotional terms about dictate, I'm not getting involved in that. I'm getting involved in facts. Here's what we did. The Canadian government gave us a grant, or I think $200,000, to investigate the most transparent way and cost-effective way in which we should build the airport. That way was to go in what is called a public-private partnership. And you may note that is the same partnership, that's the same way that the government is proposing to do health services. I want you to put that, I want you to keep that. When you speak about dictate, I want you to keep that in the recesses of your mind. Now, the public-private partnership meant that the private sector would run the airport and the public sector would own it after a certain amount of time. In response, the public sector would give up some of the airport taxes. That's a fact, we agreed. And they would get returns from the running of the airport. But here's what would happen. There would be no debt. There would be no debt. Now, let me just run on debt, because what I know you will tell me in your prepared question is that we agreed to give them the airport tax. Of course we agreed them to the airport tax. We agreed. But we would get returns from the running of the airports. And secondly, we would have fiscal space in that we would not be contingently liable for the loan that would take to build the airport. We'd have fiscal space. So that means the 175 million US dollars that we propose to borrow, we would have had it to do other things. You understand? And that's the difference. Further, we know that the previous process, and I want you to understand, caller, that the last government did not build the airport either. So I want you to understand this. You see, because we say these things that sound good, and we just think about them. The last government did not build the airport either, and they promised to build it. They didn't build it either. But what we said is that this process would be such that it would be purely transparent, because based on documents that were in the public domain, the previous process to get Iwanora International Airport built was marred in difficulties. All the phone calls, etc. And the last government did not get the money to build the airport. So again, that is not true. The government did not get the money. So to say that we didn't build it, you all didn't build it either, because you all didn't get the money. But the difference is, we had reached a point with the IFC. The IFC is an affiliate of the World Bank. The World Bank that you go to borrow money for the project that you want. The same World Bank sent the IFC, and the IFC agreed that here was the process. Tendering two of the largest airport developers in the world. And these documents are there. There's a concessionary agreement which the government has in its files, which would say how the airport would have been built, and they would have been tendering. Caller, I want to ask you a question. When you talk about dictates, the airport is 150 million US dollars worth of loans, which is not Alan Chasney's loans, or Philip J. Pierre loans, or Yuda Collar's loans, or Andre Paul's loans. It's loans that we have to pay, our children have to pay, and our grandchildren have to pay. So it's not a matter of dictating. Have you seen any tender out for any part of that airport process? They say the airport is starting in August. Have you seen any tender document in the public domain for any part of this airport process? And you speak about dictates. Secondly, St. Jude's. We've always made the point that we didn't finish St. Jude. Saying we didn't finish St. Jude is not news. What we said is we continue to work on it. So when you repeat that you didn't finish St. Jude, of course we didn't finish St. Jude. We never finished St. Jude. We never said we finished St. Jude. We said we were continuing to work on St. Jude. We did not close a site for 2 years to allow it to worsen. We didn't do that. We continued to work. The same way, when we came into government in 2011, we continued to work on St. Jude. So making the point we didn't finish St. Jude is a mute point. We agreed we didn't finish St. Jude. So caller, to answer your question, we are not dictating. We are saying that this is our position, and we're going to make our position heard. The same way Alan Chasney made his position heard when he was in opposition. When he said, one of the things he says that we were making $6.80 on gas.
Let's take as many calls as possible, Mr. Pierre. Let's take another one. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thanks for holding.
Good morning. Two questions. One, the former administration claimed that under the airport development tax,
can you speak up, caller, please?
they have collected about $40 million under the airport development tax from the former administration. Where is that money? What became of that money? And number two, the Minister of Economy claims that $3 million was paid to invest. Is that true or false?
Thank you.
Caller, if you may recall, when we came into government, we halted the airport development tax. Now, the jury's out on that still. Some people say we should not, but we did. And where that money is very simple, you know. the money was left in an account of SLASBA. I mean, this is not I mean, how I don't know what happened to it now. I know when we left government, the money was in account, is in an account. It's simple. Now, you made a point about the no money was spent to investigate Guy Joseph. That's not true. And I made the point before, I don't know if you listened. There was an investigation into the dealings surrounding Hiwanora Airport and other and the aspects surrounding that, not Guy Joseph. You can never find any investigation that says if Guy Joseph became a subject of the investigation, it is because of evidence that came. So when Guy Joseph says the money was spent to investigate him, that is not true. That's not true. No money was spent to investigate Guy Joseph. Money was spent. There was not money was spent. There was an investigation by a forensic scientist into aspects of the Hiwanora Airport development, the Hiwanora Airport development situation, not Guy Joseph.
Okay, let's take another call. 451-7260. Good morning.
Good morning, Andre.
Yes, good morning.
I want to tell Mr. Pierre, at the rate the Labour Party is going there for a long time in opposition. Blessed day.
Did you pick up what she said? I didn't quite understand.
She had an opinion. That's an opinion. I have no problem with that. I thanked her for. I'm thanking her for wishing me a blessed day.
Okay, let's take another call. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. This is Alex George Jr. How are you all? Good. I wanted to make a point regarding what Mr. Joseph said the last time he was on your show, Andre.
Mm-hmm.
And that is with respect to St. Jude. And there's been a lot of playing with numbers, right? Because one person is saying $138 million has been spent on St. Jude. Another time they're saying that $175 million is required to finish St. Jude. I think on his show, however, he did say that $118 million had been contracted. He did, in fact, admit that that amount of $118 million is not the amount spent on St. Jude. It was the amount contracted, the value of the works contracted. So in other words, a lot of that work had not yet been done. But where he failed to say so, he said that $82 million was certified and paid for. And then he then went on to say that the balance was owed to the contractor. That's not true. In fact, the same audit report which was published, the interim audit report of January 2017, says that there was to be certified and pending payment was $2 million. So in other words, thus far it was $82 million of work certified and paid. There was another $2 million of work which was certified but pending payment, which meant that there was a balance of $34 million of work still to be done on the project as per the contracts that were existing. And I think that's a very important point to be made, because that money is available money, right? Because that was money that was from the Taiwanese, it's called the Republic of China Export-Import Bank, which is a loan which was provided by that bank through the Taiwanese government, right? And that money is available to the government of St. Lucia for the completion of the project. So I think, there's an attempt to exaggerate the amount spent. And there's another untruth that is being peddled, that Dr. Kenny Anthony made a statement in 2015 that he believed that the hospital was going to cost $60 million. That statement was made on the first site visit by Dr. Anthony in 2012, right? 3 years before they were saying that statement was made. And I think it's important to make those points, because there's a deliberate attempt, in my opinion, to exaggerate the amount spent so as to justify, therefore, why the hospital should not be completed at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And well, but Andrew, this is Alex George Jr., who was involved in the process, and so Alex knows. And in fact, what Alex said is right, because the documents, and this is why the question about debate is so superfluous, because we could do it in the Parliament of St. Lucia. Why you want to do it in public when you learn to choose a moderator? The moderator is a speaker.
Let's take a final call. Huh? Good morning.
Morning, Andre.
Morning to you,
Mr.
sir.
Pierre, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Pierre, I have a problem with the abattoir. And I want to know if they have a location to the new abattoir.
because that's what he was donated to St. Lucia by the Taiwanese. And if they're going to demolish that abattoir, I want to know where and when.
So.
Or if they're going to build an abattoir before they demolish it, that wouldn't happen. So that's what I don't want to.
Thank you.
Well, caller, thank you very much. Again, these are questions. And when people talking about dictate, and that is the language of arrogance, dictate. The point is that here's on the abattoir where $21 million was spent on the abattoir. $21 million. Again, that was started by the United Workers' Party government, you know. It is again, these are things that people forget. We continued it. We made adjustments. The Honorable Moses Shabatis, as Minister of Agriculture, he spoke to the Taiwanese. He spoke about the... So, again, caller, I'm glad you brought it up. Because, when people say things, they must look at the facts. And that is why the caller previously should say what she said. Because I wanted to outline to me anything I've said here that is factually incorrect. The abattoir was conceived by the United Workers' Party. They were the ones who conceived it. We came into government and we continued it. We adjusted it. There were some issues involved in it. We went to time and said, listen to me, make it work, because it was a good idea. We had our differences in the initial conceptualization. We thought it should be put in another location. But having said so, we agreed. Then I hear also, and I want to very quickly come onto these things, because again, there's a lot of misinformation. I heard about we had no plans for Beauséjour. That is not true. As the Minister of Infrastructure, I went to Beauséjour for the sword turning ceremony for funds got from the governments of Brazil, India, these islands, to update and to upgrade the abattoir. The last Minister of Agriculture, he got livestock breeds to improve the livestock in the country. That again is not true. That is factually incorrect. But when you say things that are true, the truth comes to mind. I listened to the radio on the government's own GIS program when they were talking about that, and they were saying that project started in 2013. The same government that says there were no plans for the abattoir, there was no plans for Beauséjour, they themselves said it started in 2014. So caller, truth. And that is that's what has kept me surviving in politics. That is what kept the people of Castries East supporting me for so long. Truth. I try to be fair and to speak the truth.
Now, Mr. Pierre, I imagine you're already out of time. But just before you leave, one final question. Should you lead the next, next government as Prime Minister, would you revert or reinstate the Jazz Festival in its original form?
Caller, sorry, Andre. Andre, the Labour Party will bring jazz back to the people. We will. Now, we have the point about cost and cost and cost. Again, another flashing mirror. The figures that were quoted for being spent on jazz were not true. That's a fact. Having said so, if the government wanted to reduce the cost of jazz, no problem. How do you do it? You involve more local acts. You involve more local artists. You involve local production people. You spend less on certain things. But you keep the essence of jazz, which was an economic tool to bring visitors, but secondly, to create economic activity. And Andre, I mean, why are we fighting if that and still looking for excuses? During the Jazz Week, and people can tell you, small hotels were empty. There were no vendors selling. There was no economic activity. So to make the point that, jazz, we did jazz and money we spent, we could have reduced the cost of jazz, but still bring jazz to the people. and still have the economic spill-offs from the jazz festival. The Labour Party will bring back jazz to the people. The Labour Party will review the cost of jazz, but the Labour Party will ensure that there are economic spill-offs from jazz for the vendor, for the small hotel owner, and for the taxi driver.
And the issue of village tourism, quickly?
Again, the issue of village tourism, then again the minister tried to make it look as if it's new. There was something called the Nature Heritage Tourism Program, which I initiated. You understand? If the minister, which the village tourism is just an expansion of that entire thing. That's an expansion. The blueprint was there. You understand? We're the ones who started the ancillary business. I don't know if people forget that it was Cyprian Lansico on the instructions of the cabinet and the prime minister who went to Barbados, to Oistins, with a group of people, and they came back and we initiated the ancillary fish fry, the ancillary business. So you know, the government wants to pretend as if these are new ideas, and I'm sorry we haven't got time to talk about tourism. We don't talk about tourism because you know the minister of tourism said he knows more tourism than Menisa Rambali, Lon Theophilus, and Philip J. Pierre put together. That's what he said. He said he's more knowledge, and he shouts down and he grades everything we've done according to one of these days. We'll have a discussion on tourism.
Okay. Mr. Pierre, thank you very much, Leader of the Opposition, for being here today. We really appreciate your presence. I want to thank your personal secretary here for ensuring that we have this press secretary, on Facebook. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Until next time, Mr. Pierre.
Thank you, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. You're listening to That Makes Me Mad. First National Bank holds a shareholder engagement forum this coming